Welcome to the deep dive. Let's just jump right in. You're putting content out there, and look, you want it to connect, you want it seen, right? More eyes, more impact. But without constantly feeling like you're on that hamster wheel just starting from scratch every single time. So today, we're really digging into making your content work smarter. It's all about repurposing.
Yeah, it's a really common thing people face. You pour all this effort into creating something good, something valuable. But let's be honest, the online world is crowded. Getting that content noticed, really absorbed, it can feel like, well, like pushing a rock uphill sometimes. And that's where having a strategy, a real plan, comes into play. And that's what we're going to explore today.
Exactly. We're looking at the methods taught by Coach BK Han. He trains people, maybe like you listening, to really squeeze every bit of value out of the content they create. So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out how you can strategically plan for repurposing, like right from the very beginning, using these proven techniques.
And that really hits on a key idea that Coach BK Han stresses again and again. Repurposing. It's not something you tack on at the end. It's got to be baked in, you know, right from the start. It means thinking about all the different ways your main idea could live, even while you're just sketching it out.
Okay. So it's not like you finish this huge video or report and then you go, wonder what else I can do with this. Coach Han is saying you need that multi-format mindset before you even press record or type word one. That sounds potentially huge for efficiency.
Oh, it is. It really is. Think about it the other way around. You make this like long piece of content, zero thought about adapting it. What you end up with is this big, solid block. It's hard to slice and dice into little engaging bits for, say, social media or whatever. It just becomes a real headache trying to pull out the key nuggets in ways that fit how people actually consume stuff these days.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's like trying to make a screwdriver do a hammer's job after the fact, instead of just getting a multi-tool from the start. Coach Han apparently uses a pretty neat way to think about this, visualizing big content, like a long video maybe, as being kind of like a TV series.
Exactly. The idea is that each main point or section within that bigger piece, it can almost act like its own little episode, a focused chunk of info that makes sense on its own. And seeing it that way really changes how you structure the main thing. You start thinking in these smaller digestible units right from the get-go.
Right, so you're building in that modularity, that flexibility from the ground up. Coach Han really emphasizes structuring the longer stuff so these individual points work standalone. And he has this clever technique he teaches deliberately putting hooks or key questions into your main content.
Yes, this is such a practical tip. It naturally creates ammo for your shorter content. When you ask questions like, so how can you actually cut your long-form video into short-form video?
Ooh!
Just like Coach BK Han suggests, you're basically pre-crafting these little sound bites. They grab attention, make people curious on platforms where you only have a few seconds.
Okay, so you've planned ahead, you've got this well-structured piece, you've sprinkled in these hooks. Now, how does Coach Han guide people to actually, do the repurposing? Let's get into some specific examples of how this plays out.
Well, think about that clear structure we mentioned, point by point. How perfect is that for visual things like social media carousels, especially on LinkedIn or Instagram? Coach Han points out that if your original piece is logical, turning it into a carousel where each point gets its own slide is pretty natural.
And I guess you don't have to do it all by hand anymore, do you? Coach Han also mentions using tech to help.
Exactly. There are tools now, even AI, that can look at a script or a presentation and suggest carousel layouts. That kind of thing can be a huge time saver.
Makes sense.
And it's not just about visuals. Coach BK Han also talks about creating, like supporting materials, the quick cheat sheets or maybe an infographic that boils down the main ideas. Again, if that original content is well organized, pulling out those key takeaways for these formats is way easier.
Okay, but what about something more substantial, like turning it into a blog post? That feels like a bigger leap.
It can feel like it, but Coach Han's approach suggests your long-form piece gives you a massive head start. I mean, what's a good blog post built on? Usually a clear set of points explored properly. If your main content, following Coach Han's advice, already has those points mapped out, maybe even explained a bit, well, you're already partway there. Repurposing it into a blog then becomes more about expanding on those points, maybe adding keywords so people find it via search, and adjusting the tone slightly for reading.
So crunching the numbers here, from just one strategically planned piece of long-form content, what kind of mileage does Coach Han suggest people can realistically get? It sounds like quite a lot.
Yeah, and this is where the efficiency really shines in Coach BK Han's training. He often illustrates how one good long-form video, for example, if planned right, it could realistically generate something like, say, 10 short-form clips highlighting key moments or tips, plus a solid blog post, and maybe a carousel for LinkedIn and Instagram, and then a bunch of smaller social posts for places like Twitter or LinkedIn again, just using quotes for key takeaways.
Wow. Okay, that really paints a picture. 10 shorts, a blog, carousels. That just hammers home the core idea from Coach Han, doesn't it? It all circles back to that strategic thinking up front.
Exactly that. The absolute central message from Coach BK Han about repurposing is the power of planning ahead, proactive planning, thinking about how your content could be sliced, diced, and transformed before you create it. That's what lets you make stuff that's way more versatile and ultimately more impactful.
It's that proactive versus reactive thing, isn't it? Instead of finishing and then scrambling, thinking, oh gosh, what now? You've designed it for multiple lives from the start. Coach Han really contrasts this smooth process with the frustration of trying to force fit content that just wasn't built for it.
And, if you broaden the view slightly, while Coach BK Han's method focuses heavily on that upfront planning, the whole point is to get your message out further, right? To maximize your reach with the effort you're already putting in. So thinking strategically about repurposing naturally makes you think about where your audience is and what formats work best there. It sort of implicitly connects to knowing your numbers, understanding what works to guide future repurposing. But the bedrock, as Coach Han teaches, is always that initial plan.
Right. So wrapping this up, our deep dive into Coach BK Han's training really shows that smart content repurposing isn't just a nice to have or a time saver. It feels more like a strategic necessity. If you adopt that mindset, that planned versatility from the get-go, you can unlock some serious efficiency and really stretch the impact of your work.
Which leads to a really practical question for you listening. Looking at the content you make now, or what you're planning, how could you start weaving in these repurposing ideas from Coach BK Han? How could you design your next big piece with its future lives already in mind?
Yeah, great question. And maybe one final thing to chew on. What piece of content do you already have? Maybe it's an old presentation, a detailed email, notes from something important. Could you look at it fresh through this lens we've discussed today and reimagine it? Breathe new life into it for a new audience or a different goal, all using that strategic foresight Coach BK Han champions. Something to think about.